and I was a Theta. But for those of you who are not familiar with Cayman's, we're going to be your new go-to spot. We have everything from formal dresses and heels to loungewear and slippers. A few of the brands that we carry are Rebecca Minkoff, Rustic Cuff, Kinder Scott, Golden Goose, Rag & Bone, and a lot more. But one of my favorite things about Cayman's is the wide variety of price points that we have to offer. So I hope all of you have the chance to stop by. This week, keep in mind if your daughters need anything, whether it be a bigger tote bag, a pair of flip-flops, a new shade of lipstick, we can have that delivered to the dorm throughout recruitment week because we know it's a really stressful time for them. They're going to be busy throughout the day. So we would love to do that for them. And another thing that we've been working on this summer is midweek gifts and bid day gifts as well. For those of you who are not sure what these are, midweek gifts are just a way that you can let your daughters know, hey, I'm thinking about you, good luck. It'll just be a nice little surprise when they get back home at the end of the day. And then bid day gifts just help them celebrate, making it to the end of the recruitment process. So we're going to have a table set up in Lloyd Noble, and we'd love to help you pick out anything and get things together for you guys.
Great, thank you, Chandler. We look forward to seeing you at Lloyd Noble this afternoon. And again, we're here for you. Anything that you need from us, just even advice on a great dry cleaners, don't hesitate to call us. We have all kinds of college girls that work in the store. They're very knowledgeable about what's going on. And again, we're here for you and look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
And they have nice clothes too. So guys in the room, you don't have to feel like, oh, that wasn't for me, because they got a lot of good stuff in there. So again, really great partners. You'll see them all over the place, but make sure if you guys, after this, we're going to meet at Lloyd Noble Center, and you'll have plenty of time to visit with them if some of those things kind of seem interesting to you for your student. And so with that being said, I'm going to introduce my next colleague, but really what I want to do before we kind of get into that is, for us, one of the most important things is that we kind of walk you all through what your students are going to go through till next Tuesday. Right? And a lot of you guys may be very familiar with our Greek system or a Greek system. And for a lot of people, this may be all new to you. Your student may be the first one going through Greek life. And so our goal is to kind of help equip you as families, as parents, as guardians, as siblings, whatever you are to your student. Our goal today is to kind of give you some information that can help them through this journey, okay? And so we want to take some of the anxiety out. I heard there's like a parent group or a Facebook group that's been like a lot for a lot of people. And so I just want to make sure that we're kind of addressing some of those things. And we'll have time afterwards to ask questions. And so if you have questions, this is a great time to ask because you have the person in charge of everything here. And so without further ado, I want to introduce my friend Kylie Frisbee. She is the Panhellenic advisor. She's an assistant director in student life. For me, she is one of the best parts of our office. She truly cares about the Panhellenic experience. For her, she, when she came to OU, she's from a small town, small graduating class, did not really know what sorority recruitment was. We were just joking that on the first day, she was like, oh my God, everyone's wearing this outfit, and I'm wearing like jeans with holes in them. What did I do? And she owned it, right? And for me, it was really cool that she did that herself, and she was herself. That, for me, by the time everything was said and done, her collegiate career, she was one of our top senior women. So she was on homecoming court. She was top 10 senior. She was also her chapter president by the time she was a senior. And so she's done a lot. And then she's also done Panhellenic Recruitment. This will be her third year with Panhellenic Recruitment on this side of the table. And so she brings a lot of experience. And so she really cares about your student and about the experience. And so I just want to introduce her to y'all, give her the floor. She really is the expert. I also want to remind y'all that you guys may feel frustrated during this experience. And sometimes you want to talk to someone and vent to someone. And just remember that there's like a human on the other side of that phone. And more often than not, it's going to be Kylie. And so remember how nice she is right now. And when you're ready to call, concerned, or just scared, that Kylie's going to be the friendly face that's on the other side of that phone. So without further ado, Kylie Frisbee.
Wow. Isn't that fun when your boss reads your resume to the whole room? Well, like you said, I'm so glad you guys are here today. Hopefully this session will help answer all of the questions you have, because I'm sure you have a lot.
We were talking before, like Quee said, my parents weren't in a fraternity or a sorority. And so I remember they came to this session and my mom raised her hand. She was like, so how does it work? You know, no idea. So hopefully we can answer those questions, alleviate some fear, some stress. We got some good statistics for you all to hopefully give you some peace of mind, and kind of talk through some of that stuff. So to start it off, a couple of things to know. Recruitment for sororities at OU, well, Panhellenic sororities, is a mutual selection process. So we will say this a lot to your students, mutual selection. That means that sororities are meeting with your students, they're getting to know them, they're talking about their values, and then they are seeing how those students might fit with the group, and your students are doing the same thing. So it's just as much your students' decision and choice as it is the chapters. So sometimes people think that sororities totally run the process and it's only their decision, and that's not the case at all. So I want that to be like one myth that is hopefully squashed from the beginning. A couple other things. There is a financial commitment that comes with Greek life. I think any of our 5 awesome Greek councils does have a time commitment. I mean, a financial and a time commitment. And so that might be something you guys want to ask about. Whether it's now, you can ask at the end. Your student might want to ask. That's not a taboo question to ask during recruitment. If they want to know how much dues are, if they are going to have a job while they work, 85% of our Panhellenic community is on some kind of financial aid. So it is not what the media sometimes portrays it to be. So I want that to be a myth that we can hopefully squash at the beginning too. So if they, I don't know why that's making weird noises, but if they want to ask about finances, they most definitely can. So don't, this is a lifelong commitment, and it's a big commitment. So make sure that they're getting the information that they want and need right at the beginning, and that's something that you all can ask about too. Like if you're going to be helping with finances, might be something to chat about. And then like the screen says, time commitment. Time commitment's another big one. So I think a lot of times families are worried that the sorority is going to take precedence over like the academic experience. And we want you to know that our Panhellenic experience supplements the academic experience. It does not take precedence over that. So our Panhellenic GPA for all of our students, we have over 3,000 women in Panhellenic, and the average GPA is a 3.4, which is pretty awesome. So I think that number alone tells you that these girls care about academics. They are here for school, and the sorority helps them be better people outside of that. So it's not something that's going to stress them out too much, and if anything, it provides them with some resources and stuff for the classroom that they can use kind of outside of the classroom as well. So those are some things to know. Some things we would love for you to know about supporting your daughter. Understand that this is their process, and for some parents, they do this so well. We have parents every year that call and just want to talk through how they have that conversation, like, oh my gosh, my daughter doesn't have a full party schedule. I don't know how to help her. I don't know how to support her. And we can talk through that with you. But you know your students better than we do at this point, right? Like, you know everything about them. And so you know what your student needs, what she cares about, what she likes. And so you might be able to help kind of frame that conversation of how to support her. But we do want you to know, and this is something that we will tell them, this is their experience. For some of them, this is their first college experience. Maybe they didn't go to Camp Crimson, or maybe they did, and this is one of their first OU experiences. And we think that's so exciting, especially because this is like a really big, I'm so sorry, that is so annoying. Yeah, do we want to try a different? Okay, let's try this one. Thanks, Quee. So it's a big decision-making process, and for some students, this is the first time that they are making a big decision. Because for people maybe like me, my college decision was made for me. I wanted to come to OU, and so it was nice that it worked out, but I couldn't afford out-of-state tuition. And so my decision for college was made for me. And so my sorority was the first time in my life that I made a decision for me. And I remember feeling so empowered by that. And so that's something that we hope your students get to do, and something that you get to coach them through this experience. So that's exciting. Take some notes when they call. A lot of times they are so exhausted, they're gonna not know what's going on by the end of the day, and so they might tell you something one night and then come back and tell you something completely different about that chapter the next night. And you can look back at your notes and say, well, last night you said this, how did you feel there today? What kind of conversation did you have today? Very open-ended questions are great questions to ask, just to kind of let them talk it out. You know, I think a lot of times our students are going to call you and they just want to vent. They don't necessarily want you to fix, they just want you to listen. And so they have the rogamas that are going to do that for them as well. But like I said, you know them better than anybody. And so they just met the rogamas today. So, you know, they might feel comfortable talking to them about it, but they might feel more comfortable talking to you. And so really just listening, asking open-ended questions like, how did you feel when you walked into the chapter house? What was your favorite conversation you had today? What are you looking forward to about that tomorrow? Those kinds of things are great questions to ask. And then lastly, this kind of goes along with that, but helping guide versus managing. I think a lot of times we want to fix things for the people that we love. And I know I'm one of those people. If someone in my life that I really care about comes to me and something is hurting them, I'm like, who do I need to beat up? You know? And so with this process, this might be the first time that your student is told no, and it's not going to be the last. I think a lot of our students that come through Panhellenic Recruitment are super high achieving. And that's amazing, because we need those women in our community. We need them to make us better. But a lot of times, like I said, this might be the first time that they're told no. And that kind of hurts at the beginning. And so, like I said, it's not going to be the first time, and it might not be the last. A lot of times in college, there are a lot of things that students apply for, try to do, and sometimes they're told no, and that's okay. But you know, having someone to go to, someone to talk to, those are the people that they're going to need, and those people are you. So really just listening, guiding, and not managing is something that we really want to stress with you all. The family role, I kind of talked about this. You guys are a sounding board. Really just someone to listen to these students, to care about them. We know that you care about them, or you wouldn't have dealt with all of this drama today. Oh my gosh. Like we said, we'd all been up since 5 a.m. I'm like, wow, these parents really love their students. And so we know that, and your students know that. Some of you have driven across the country to be here. Some of you are flying in and flying right back out and coming back for midday. You know, it's a lot, and your students appreciate it, even if they're not telling you. And so being that sounding board during this process is going to be something that's really big for them, and I know they're really going to appreciate at the end of the day. Being a celebrator, because they're going to have some really fun times during this process. They're going to get told yes. They're going to meet some really awesome students. I think we have the best of the best students in our community. I love working with them every day. Even though I'm like exhausted by the end of this, it's always so much fun because the students have such an awesome time. So being a celebrator, getting to celebrate with them at the end of the week, or maybe even during the week. We have some students that do withdraw from this process, and for them, that's a win. They found out that, hey, maybe this isn't for them, but this other thing is. And they're connected to students on campus just like they would be through any other student organization or process. So celebrating. And then also consoling. You know, like I said, I'm going to be real with you all. Like, I would never sugarcoat with really anyone. That's probably a flaw that I have. I'm not good at sugarcoating. But like I said, they're going to be told no, and there's going to be times this week, even if there are celebrations, that there's going to be some low points. They're going to be tired. They're going to think everything's going against them. And it's, you know, for me, I struggle with that because that's the last thing I want our students to be feeling like. But I think they learn so much about themselves. They learn what they can handle. They learn what they care about. We're going to talk a lot with them about what they care about, their values, things that they hold dear. And so hopefully by the end of this, they know so much more about themselves, and they're able to take that out. Because this is more than just about a sorority, right? It's making you a better person for the rest of your life. So that's the goal here. It's not just the t-shirts and the bidet and the gifts and all that stuff. I mean, that's awesome, don't get me wrong. But hopefully they leave better people. That's what we want for your students. And then lastly, we want you to know that we're your partners. like Cayman's as a partner for us, we are partners with you. We are on your team. And so like I said, if there's any time this week that you need to talk it out with somebody, if you need to get some advice, if you have a question and you're like, oh, she might have mentioned that in this parent session and I don't remember what she said because today's been 6 years long, you can call. You can always call our office. That's why we've been emailing you guys all summer. If you're listed as a primary or a secondary contact, we know that this process is very confusing. It's a lot. There's a whole other verbiage with Panhellenic Recruitment, and so we hope that you have a person to go to, and that person can be myself, it can be Quee, Hunter over here, anybody in the office. We are here to help, and so you have our office line in that email. If you don't have it, come find me at the end and we can tell you. And it's listed all over our website. It's all over the place. So know that you can come chat with us. You can show up in the office. We're happy to be those people for you anytime you might need it. Okay, so some numbers. I think this is really interesting to know and something that I love showing parents because I think a lot of times, like how many of us are worried that our daughters aren't going to get a bid? We can, real talk, yeah? Anybody? Oh, wow, okay, so we're not that nervous about it. You guys are like, my kid is awesome. You don't need to tell me this. I believe you. I believe your students are awesome. But, for my mom, I remember she was like, are you sure you want to do this? I think you're going to regret it, maybe. I don't know. I was like, thanks, Mom. But it's nice to know. So in 2017, our numbers, we had 1,094 women go through recruitment last fall. So pretty big number, and we're on track to have a little bit more than that this year. Our registration numbers were over 1,100, so not a whole lot bigger, but still. So 84% of that 1,094 women joined a chapter at the end of the week. 84%. 15% withdrew from the process. So when you withdraw, that means that you still have parties on your schedule. When they get your schedule in the morning, they still had parties, but they decided maybe those chapters aren't for me, maybe this process isn't for me, maybe Panhellenic isn't for me. They just decided it's not for them. And that's their decision, and we support them in that decision. Less than 1% were released from the process, which means when we say complete release, that means that they did not have any parties on their schedule that morning. So less than 1%. Last year, when I say less than 1%, I think 1% still is like, oh my gosh, that's like several people. It was 3. We had 3 complete releases last year. So I'm never ever gonna tell you that your student is guaranteed a bid because I can't know. At the end of the day, I don't make the decision. The chapters are deciding, your students are deciding, and there's a matching process, like I said, mutual selection. So sometimes it matches up and sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, 3 women out of 1,094. So I hope this can kind of show you that that is a possibility, but it is a small possibility. I don't want you to stress and lose sleep over that. But I think the more important thing with these numbers is the withdrawals. So we talk about having an open mind through this process. And we have been training our roommates the last couple days, and I've told them over and over, I think when people say trust the process, I personally think that's kind of BS. I'm like, you can't trust a process, People are joining people, that's how this works. And so I will never tell your students or you to trust the process, because, it's about meeting people and it's about getting to know each other. And I think that's more what it's about than the process itself. But when it comes to that idea, if you have an open mind, like these 15%, some of them might have had an open mind and just decided it wasn't for them, but some of them have chapters on their list. Those chapters love those girls, and the girls said no to the chapter. And so they might not have had an open mind coming in, or they might have listened to what other people were saying, or what family was saying. They might have been influenced by outside decisions, whatever that looks like for them. And so I hope this graph kind of shows that if you have an open mind, the likelihood of you receiving a bid is so much higher than if you don't. And then this one shows all those little boxes. Those are each one of our 11 chapters. So 8%-ish of each of the total number of P&Ms is joining a chapter. So again, pretty across the board. At the end of the day, our national organization, it's called NPC, the National Panhellenic Conference, we value parity over everything. We want everything to be the same. We will always use alphabetical order. We will treat everybody the same with the same dignity, respect that every student, every person deserves. And so that's how our recruitment process works too, with a quota system. Each chapter is given a specific quota that they're allowed to recruit to. And so that's how you can see these all end up very similar in size. But again, that 15% not joining, withdrawing from the process. And so if that's the decision that's best for your student, then that's great. If a student is worried about finances, or if she's worried about working another job and doing Panhellenic, the last thing I want is for her to get in there and then need to drop for whatever reason. So she can always come to our office and talk through that decision with us. We have staff members on site. This is something I love that we do. We have staff members on site. They're called the Perspectives Committee. Clever name because they give perspective. So they're Panhellenic women, they're alums that step away from their chapter. They work on campus and they will talk to your students. So if your student's like, you know what, I don't know if this is right for me, or I just want to talk through my decision with someone who might not be my Rogue Gamma or my family member or my friend, they can come to our office and talk through that with a staff member. And they're just there to listen and help them decide what's best for them. They're not going to give advice, they're not going to tell them what to do, they're just going to keep saying, and how does that make you feel? And what do you think about that? So again, those are very open-ended questions, but hopefully this helps give a little bit of numbers background for you all. So, lots of info. We want to give lots of time for questions because I know there are some questions out there. And I want to preface this, there's no dumb question. And if you have the question, I'm sure somebody else in this room has it too. So do not be afraid to ask. I think we're going to do the mic thing like real professionals. What? For our Facebook Live. Maybe not. Maybe I just said that and now it's not. But anyway, so any questions about anything? Yes. Are you going to do that?
Maybe just speak loud and we'll repeat the question.
Okay.
What is your question?
On midday, it says 2 o'clock, but what time should we actually get here into the office that we're in the morning, so having one from somewhere else? So where should we go, like what time should we get here about, like where are we supposed to be?
Great question. So the question was bid day. Bids are distributed at 2 o'clock. What time do we show up if we don't live here? Where do we go? All of those things. So, like you said, bids distributed at 2. That's the time your students will know. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for our organists to get down the hall. So it might be between 2 and 2:30. We gotta be patient. Patience is a virtue. But feel free to get here whenever. They have the entire morning off. So I went to lunch with my family that day. You're more than welcome to take your students out because I know today was pretty wild, so you might not have got to spend a lot of time with your students. And so if you're coming back to Norman or if you live in the area, you can go out to lunch with them, go get breakfast, whatever. Feel free to do that. We suggest, there's really 2 things you can do. One, you can wait for their text message or their call to tell you where to meet them. So those girls, y'all, it's the most wild thing I've ever seen in my life. They get their bids on their hallway, and then it's like a mass exodus out of the residence halls. Like, I want to pay someone for the security footage, because they run down the street. It's like they're like full-on sprinting to these chapter houses, and they're jumping into the arms of their new friends, all those things that you see in those cheesy videos. It's real. It's pretty cute, actually. So you can either wait for her to text you before she starts sprinting, and tell you where to meet her, and then parking that day is a lot, so, we suggest, they're not going to be taking you on campus. So South Campus, most of the other students won't have moved in yet, only students participating in Panhellenic Recruitment will have moved in. So you should be able to park in this area, this general vicinity, and then meet them. Sometimes there's parking at the chapter facility, sometimes there's not. So that's one option, wait for them to tell you. The other option is come to our office. We're officed out of Tarman Social Lounge in the Adams Center. It's the residence hall that doesn't have a middle elevator section. So you can come to our office, and then at 2 o'clock we're going to put the bid list up on the door. So we'll tape it up to the window, and you can check and see. It'll be by alphabetical order. You can check and see where she's going, and then just go meet her there. Because sometimes, they love you, but sometimes they forget to call or they forget to text. And we'll tell them, please text your families, but sometimes they forget, so.
And I also want to point out too, I know that we have a lot of families that are from out of town or that are like, I'm just dropping my student off, do I need to come back for a good day? You don't have to, okay? There's a lot of families that don't, it's not required. It's just part of the culture to like have the woman run down, but it won't take anything away from their experience. Honestly, once the women get their bids, they're gonna be busy with their chapter for the rest of the day, so you won't see your student. So if you're gonna drive in, you may see your student for maybe 20 minutes, if that, and then it's like, we'll see you later.
Yeah, take some pictures, do those things.
Exactly. Okay, we have a Facebook question about costs, real quick, and so I'm not specifically sure what it is, but do you want to just briefly talk about costs?
Yeah, I can pull up like very specific numbers. Oh, you're using my phone. Sorry. So it's on our website. We have ranges of each year of membership and then averages. So for Panhellenic, the first year average range, both of those things, are higher than the rest of the years. So the first year, they have to pay for a membership badge that they'll wear. I mean, I still wear my badge at stuff I go to for alumni things. They will pay for initiation fee in the spring, so it's pretty quick. So they'll pay for that initiation fee, and then you'll see on there, which we can see if we can pull that up. Maybe Hunter can help me with this, or Kui or someone. Can you pull up on our website the cost?
Yes.
We'll read them out so you know. It also has second year, so in our council for Panhellenic, most sophomores live in the chapter house. So obviously costs are a little bit higher because it includes membership fees, any kind of dues, rent, parking pass, meal plan, all that stuff's bundled in there. So you'll notice that it's probably cheaper to live in the chapter house than it is to live in the residence halls on campus. And then junior and senior year, if your student doesn't have a leadership position, which, I mean, our chapters are pretty large. Our average chapter size is 289. So if they are one of those, 15 or 16 people that doesn't hold a leadership position, then they might not live in the chapter house. But if they do, then they'll live in. So it kind of depends. It's towards the bottom. Oh, sweet. Yeah, I was going to read this out just so you have it. Sorry, I didn't put it in the PowerPoint. Okay, so for Panhellenic, we'll do first and second year fees. So first year, our average is $3,400, and the range is $2,300 to $4,600. So that's that first year. Like I said, a little more expensive the first year. And that includes any mandatory dues, fees, everything for a full year. So it's not by semester. And then second year, the year that most students live in the chapter house, anywhere from $8,000 to $11,000 for the year. And the average is $9,000. So, yes, question?
What are the costs if they don't live in the house their second year? And when are the fees due their first year?
Great question. She asked what the costs are if they don't live in the house the second year. That's also on there. And then when are they due?
When are they due?
Yes. So if they don't live in, the range is $2,200 to $3,500. So kind of a little bit less than that first year, but pretty similar. And then the average is $2,800. So that's for a full year again. Most of our groups have, what am I trying to say? They have monthly fees. So they break that cost down over a year and then it's billed monthly. Some bill over the summer, some don't. They all use third-party billing systems, so Omega 5, Bill Highway, Greek Bill.
So it's not one lump sum.
Correct. It's not just one lump sum. It's broken down by month for most groups. I think some do have an option if you want to do a lump sum at the beginning and just get it over with. That's fine. For some people that works best if they have scholarships that they might have like a check for, they can do that. But yeah, most are monthly. And I also want to mention, on bid day, should you come back, all of our chapters will have some kind of parent meeting. If you're on our Facebook page, we had questions about what time they're going to be. Unfortunately, I don't know because the chapters kind of set them up themselves. but we're, anywhere from like the 3 to 4:30 range, somewhere in there. And they will talk about finances for that specific chapter. So if you are coming back, you can get set up for the Parents Club, because there's a Parents Club for that too. You can get set up in billing if you're helping your students with finances, those kinds of things they'll discuss there. Question?
So after that parent meeting, once the girls get their bids for their house, what do the events look like from that day on through till like the first day of school? So the rest of their summer.
Yeah, awesome question. So she asked after they get their bids, what events look like from then until the start of school. Kind of depends from each group. They will have activities planned every day, but they are not mandatory. We do have a lot of students that'll go home because they forgot stuff. They live here for a week and they realize, I might need that thing I said I didn't need, whatever that is. So they might go home and get stuff. They, go home and get some rest before school if you live in the area. But a lot of students do stay. So their chapters will have stuff planned all throughout that week. They will take them to show them where their classes are. Like their temporary big will go take them to show them where their classes are. They'll have movie nights at the house, or they'll all go out to eat together. They'll go teach them how to use their meal plan, all that kind of stuff. So those things are all things that are planned. And then they'll also take them to university events. So we have student orientation weekend that happens that weekend before school starts, and they'll go to those things. We have new senior convocation and the inauguration of our new president. So that's a really historic thing we're really encouraging all students to go to, and the chapters will be taking groups down there as well. So it should be pretty fun. Question in the back. For cost, yes. Yeah, for the academic year, yes. Yeah, that's an awesome question. She asked if parents are required to attend because of those meetings. No. Some students pay for their sorority completely on their own. Our Panhellenic president actually does that. So, her parents might have come to the meeting. She's from Norman. They might have come back, but, they didn't need to get set up on any kind of financial stuff because she does it all by herself. So, not every parent will be there. They just do it for parents that do come, because it is a culture here that lots of families, we have a big population from Oklahoma and Texas. We do have a lot of out-of-state students as well, but we've got a lot of people kind of in this general area within driving distance. So people that live close do try to come back if they can get off work or, whatever, but definitely not required. So they will get your student can put your email in, and then they send all of that stuff out to you via email as well. That was a great question. She asked if whatever they talk about on bid day at those parent meetings, if they'll put them on the website. I don't necessarily know. I will say, I love our students. Our websites, their chapter websites are run by students, and so they are, like you can imagine, students get busy. They have midterms and finals, and then they forget about that stuff. So sometimes those websites aren't the most up to date, I will say. But we can request that they do that. Again, I can't make our chapters really do anything, but we can request. And our Panhellenic groups are really good about communicating with families, because they know it is, the student is joining, but you all are also joining. It's a family experience. So we can definitely request that they do that. Any other questions? Yes.
You talked about the percentages that receive bids. What's your retention rate, or the retention rate from bids to actually initiation?
Yeah, awesome question. Retention rate from taking a bid on bid day, accepting that bid, to initiation rate. I don't have an actual exact number, but it's very good. We do, I'm not gonna lie to you, we do have women that get in there and they're like, okay, whoa, not for me. Or people that, find other areas on campus they want to get involved in and they decide it's not for them anymore, and that's fine. But it's a pretty low number. I mean, each chapter will have probably less than 10 women take themselves out of that process. In some chapters it's 3, in some chapters it's maybe 12, but it's, I don't have an exact number for you, I'm sorry about that. But the retention rate is really good. It's when they start kind of getting throughout their college experience. I mean, we're like any, attrition does happen, so we're like any organization. By the time they're seniors, they're going to nursing school, they're studying abroad, and sometimes they'll deactivate their membership so they can go do those things. So, there's less seniors than there are freshmen, but we do have some statistics, Greek community wide, on our website in that experience guide, but I don't have those numbers for Panhellenic just memorized. I'm sorry. Hope that helps. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
And how long is the 6 o'clock meeting tonight?
It's quick. The 6 o'clock meeting tonight is quick. We've cut some stuff out because we know y'all probably need to run errands and do all those things, and we can't control the weather, although I wish I could. So we're gonna keep it pretty short, probably like 40, 45 minutes at the most. We just really want to walk through that schedule with your students and make sure that they know all the guidelines, because there are a lot of guidelines with recruitment. And we like to be up front, let them know what they're walking into, and then they'll meet with their road units later that night. So hopefully between you'll have some time to still, go to dinner. I say supper, but I'm trying to say dinner. Go spend some time tonight, whatever you want to do. You can do that tonight.
I do want to also kind of, so one of the things that we'll do when it's time for your student to make a selection, right? Kylie will bring him into this room and she will have a conversation with each student. This is important for you all to know as families, okay? Is Kylie will sit here and she will say, this is what you need to do for your process. So tonight, I need you to move over your top, 7 chapters that you prefer, and here's how you need to do it. And so she will help your student maximize their options. So if she says to move over 7, and well, they have to, but let's just say like she says you have to move over 7, they only move over 5, and something happens, and they don't get like an option. It's because they didn't do something correctly, and that's what happens. And so what I want to let you all know as parents is that every night we will have someone here that records that conversation, and then we will upload it on our website so that you can hear what your student is hearing. So that way, whenever they call you and say, hey, I got released from every chapter, nothing wants me, and I hate Greek life, what's really is happening is they probably didn't maximize their options. And so I think it's important for y'all to know that that's going to be a resource available for y'all. Those meetings, the conversation is 30 minutes. If that, it's really quick. And so that's why we are going to be in here. It's going to be recorded. But again, that's something that's important for us to let families know, this is information for y'all to kind of know. Because I think there's always 2 sides to every story, right? And so really sometimes it's their side, our side, and the truth a little bit. So, but ours is the truth. So, but we want to make sure that you guys are getting the full side, because I think it's easy to get really defensive and be like, I'm gonna call Kylie or I'm gonna call Gui, and they're gonna hear a mouthful. When in reality, it's oh, my student had 2 options and she only wanted one of them, and if she would have chosen both, she could have been guaranteed a chapter. So I think those are, but we will explain that every night so that you kind of understand the process. I think, did you have anything else to add? Okay, perfect, sorry.
You said that's on your site, or your website or Facebook?
Website, pan.ou.edu, minus the W's at the beginning. That's been an issue all summer. I don't know why the W's don't work, but they don't. So just pan.ou.edu.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. So we pointed here, and then I'll go to you next. Yeah.
That wasn't clear. I didn't realize we were supposed to be at the 6 o'clock meeting too.
Oh, parents don't have to go to that 6 o'clock meeting. It's just really just for students. Lots of parents will come. But you don't have to come. We'd love to see if you do.
Now we'll go to the one in the back.
So on the night before, you have to pick two houses. Before the day, you're down to two houses, right?
So the question is, the night before, are you down to 2 houses?
Yes.
So say there are two houses, and you pick both of them, but then they can't both come in, right?
Correct.
Correct. Yes, so,
Can they both come in?
no. Yes, I can talk a little bit about what that looks like. So the process kind of whittles down from the first day. So the first round, open house, they're going to all 11 chapters, 25 minutes apiece. They're chit-chatting, talking about stuff. They go to 6 chapters one day, 5 the next, or maybe 5, then 6. That's when they wear the shirts that they're going to get tonight. And then they will pick their top favorite 8 chapters, the chapters that they feel most at home in, or chapters maybe they had a great conversation and want to learn more about them. The next round, round 2, is philanthropy round. The name gives away what it is. They're talking about philanthropy. So in that round, like I said, 8 parties maximum. So we will always say 8 parties maximum. Some women will have 8 parties on their schedule. Some women might have 5, might have 3. If you have any parties on your schedule, that is an awesome schedule. We have 11 amazing groups, and so we don't ever say language like, oh, you only have 4 chapters, or you only have 6. No, you have 6, so that's awesome. So it's 11, then 8 max, then 5 maximum on sisterhood round. Again, talk about sisterhood. It's a buzzword. It's awesome. Talk about sisterhood, 5 max, same kind of thing. The parties get a little bit longer every day. And then preference round is the last round that she was talking about, 2 parties maximum. So if you get to that round and you maximize your options, meaning if you went to 2 parties and you preference both of them, saying, I like this one, but I can also see myself in this group, your daughter's guaranteed a bid to one of those 2. Might not be her first preference. It depends on what the chapter does and how all the numbers. It matters what the chapter is selecting and what every other PNN is selecting. The system takes all of that into account. So it's a very intense algorithm that I will not pretend like I know how that works. But the computer system is what matches it all. So a lot of times people will call us and be like, the computer was wrong. And it's never wrong. So I can always double check though. If girls want to come in and have me double check their preferences, I am more than happy to do that. But unfortunately that's something I can't share with parents. So if you guys are worried about that, work through your student. I'm happy to do that. So like I said, if you went to 2 and you preference both, meaning you maximize your options, guaranteed a bid on bid day. If you went to 1 chapter that night, which was my preference experience, I had 1 chapter, went to the chapter, met my future best friend, my future big on that night. I knew, I preferenced them and I knew where I was going on midday, so I slept easy that night. I didn't have to worry about anything. When I turned in my card, they said, how many chapters did you go to tonight? Because we always ask, how many did you go to? Because if you went to 2 and only put 1 down, they need to know that they are not guaranteed a bid. So that's when we say, you know what this means, you know the decision you're making, you know the possible outcomes. We talk about all that with them one-on-one, like they have to come to me to ask that. But if they only went to 1 party, then it's, we say congratulations, give them a hug because they know where they're going the next day. And it makes it easier for you because they'll give you a call and say, I'm going to XYZ chapter, and you know exactly where to go at 2 o'clock. Pretty awesome. So that is the case for lots of our women. I think it's sometimes for students, they might call and feel like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to 8 parties and I have 6 or I have 5. And that's what you hear, because those are the girls, it's like a humble brag. Like, oh, I have to walk all the way from here to there with no breaks. And you're like, okay, thanks. I have like a 4-hour break and I watch this movie in my room 15 times. So we have stuff built in. They can always come hang out in our office. We've got a break room. We've got stuff to do, people to meet, things to see. So if that is their experience, it's gonna feel like everybody has 8 parties and they have 6. But I promise that's not the case. So don't let that stress you out if that's your student's experience.
And the computer system that we use, just so you know, it was developed by a Panhellenic woman. She was actually her national president. And she actually she flies in. She's a graduate of MIT. She flies in and does our recruitment system, recruitment with us for the past 10 years, I think. So we have experts here that run that program.
Because she likes us and we're nice.
Yes.
Yes.
So 11 the first day, and then after that, does it just go down to the ones that match? You know, when you're
Sort of.
giving your choices and their choices, and say some of yours weren't on the list that chose you,
Mhm.
or maybe you weren't on, I mean, how does it?
Yeah, so
Blend.
she's kind of asked me about how that matching process works after round one. And again, it's pretty complicated. It depends on what other chapters are selecting and then what your selections are. So sometimes, like we said, neutral selection. So good example, I hate to keep using myself as an example, but I will. The chapter that I am a member of, an alumni member of, I released on round one. I was like, this girl is not clicking with me, not my favorite place to be, not the end of the world. I mean, I still like them, obviously. I was like, oh, I'll put them on my bottom three. I ended up being the chapter president, obviously, so, and then ended up in this job. So I ended up back there the next day because I wasn't on every other chapter's list, but I was still on their list, even though they weren't on mine. So it wasn't mutual. So it kind of depends on how that works.
This is why you should go to everyone.
Yes, you should always maximize, always maximize. And the nice thing is the system makes you maximize at the beginning. So sometimes students that have really hard set ways will come to us and say, I only want to pick 4 from that first day. And you're like, well, you went to 11. You can't only pick 4. Tomorrow's a max of 8. And they say, well, I only want those 4. Well, the system makes you maximize. So we always say if they are very hard set in what they want, we always say you can go make a new friend, even if you think you don't want to be in that chapter. And might be like me, end up in that chapter at the end of the week because I met a really awesome girl that next day and we talked about really great stuff. So you never know. That's why we really stress the open mind because it's really, really important.
And I think it's important too, as you guys are working with your students, to help them learn how to have solid conversations. Because I think a lot of times what we hear is there's a girl and maybe she gets on a chapter and she has to go to that meeting, that round, and she's really mean. And she doesn't talk to her host. And word gets around, right? I mean, it's a small Panhellenic system. And they're gonna be like, man, this girl was really rude to me. Because she thought, my chapter wasn't what she wanted it to be. And so I think it's important as you as families to be you need to treat everybody with respect. You need to have good conversation. You need to be engaging. Because I think it's just all that. I think all that stuff matters. In terms of conversation of how engaged they want to be. And so just make sure your student is being kind to the woman. Our sororities, they have been researching your children, right? It's really creepy. But if your student is going to go into the sorority, it's going to be wild. And they're going to get paired randomly with somebody, and it's going to be oh my God, I did student council, you did student council? How odd, what are the odds? Well, 100% because we've been studying it for the past 2 months, right? And so, I think it's important, that they know, these women know what they're looking for as well. It's not just random, oh, we're just going to talk to this random student when they come in. They kind of know, and so, you need to have your students be give each chapter a chance. Because that student they're talking to you, that is talking to you, they've been preparing for you. They want to have a conversation. They want you there. And so I think it's important that you help your students to make sure that they have a really good conversation, okay? Because these chapters that they may think that they don't want, those chapters want them. And I think it means a lot when, it just means a lot to feel yes, I'm accepted, right? And I think we all want that. And so help your students navigate those waters of, if they don't get a chapter that they really like the first day or whatever, what's the message as a parent, right? What is your message as a family of, are we going to focus on the chapter that maybe said no? Based on a 10-minute conversation and some research, or are we going to focus on the chapter that was heck yeah, we want you, right? And I think that's where we need your help to be how do we look at that other chapter? How do we have that conversation? It's if your student was riding a bike growing up, right, and they fell, and you're like, okay, we don't need to ride the bike anymore, right? And like you want to protect them, but you don't want to like, right, get on the bike. Let's try it again. Let's give it another shot. And all of a sudden they learn, and they're like, okay, we got this, and they're happy, right? Even though they have some bumps and bruises and scrapes, they're still going forward at that point. So I think it's important.
And another kind of nice tip with that, if you're looking for like points of things to say, they probably only talk to like 1 or 2 girls. And I said those chapters have 300 people in them, right? Our largest chapter has 329 people. So if they talk to 2 girls out of that entire chapter, that maybe that's not the people that they're going to click with. I think it's naive of us to think that we always say, you love all your sisters, but you don't have to like all of them. It's like, sometimes it's like family, I don't know. We all have that like weird uncle, you don't, maybe not like them, but you love them. So sometimes that's how our sisters are. But like I said, we have groups of 300 people. And so they're not going to click with every single person in the chapter. And so that's a thing that we always like to say is, just go back this day, still non-committal, you're not bound to anything, but you at least get to make a new friend. You can talk about places you like to go, new places to go try and dorm in, or fun things to do on campus, those kinds of things. So there's always more people to meet and more things to talk about.
Yeah, and they have road gammas. We didn't really go in depth with road gammas, but they're going to be like their small group leader throughout this process, and they are part of our Greek system, but they disaffiliate kind of during this process. And so again, another idea of like to be careful of your surroundings, because again, if I get like alpha chapter, I'm like, I don't want alpha chapter. Like that's not what I like. My road gamma could be like a part of that chapter, and I think it's like almost like a respect thing of saying like, okay, why is it that you don't like it? Maybe it's like I didn't click with the girls, but I still love like. I think it's about changing that message. Because I think a lot of our girls can just kind of be like pretty blunt, mean sometimes. I'm sure your students are awesome, but they're gonna have roommates that may be a little mean, and I'm like, man, these girls love their chapters, and all of a sudden there's a new student that's just like tearing it down. So I think it's important to know that there's people in every chapter that have been successful, that are all over this campus, and Kylie runs a really strong Panhellenic system. This is one of the best Panhellenic systems in the nation. You look at that retention number for who gets to bid day, and that's one of the highest numbers that you'll see in the country, right? And I think that's really incredible. And Kylie makes sure that we try to make sure that our students get that opportunity. So,
Any other question over here?
It's not so much a question, but a comment.
Yeah.
I know everybody's probably going to mob you again. You did special accommodations for pride members, and I wanted to tell you what a great job.
Aw.
I appreciate it, and just, because they're going to be doing pride camp, so they're going to be doing,
Yeah.
all day and then trying to compete, not compete.
With a nice little fleet of golf carts.
Have the time to take showers and get ready. So again, I want to thank you for that. I appreciate the accommodation.
So glad it worked out. Question over here. Oh, was there someone else?
yeah, I feel like you have your hand up a couple of times.
I was just wondering, is tonight the last time we'll be able to see our daughter after?
That sounds so sad. Say goodbye. No, it's not the last time. So if you are around and want to come say hey, you're more than welcome to. They will have free time in the evenings. I mean, the process is pretty extensive, so the free time is limited. But if, a mom emailed me and said, it's my daughter's birthday on the 12th. I'd love to get dinner with her. Like, go to dinner with your daughter on her birthday, you're more than welcome to. She just needs to check out with the Rogamas. Just let them know where she's going and make sure that she's not missing any like mandatory stuff. So yeah. But the only like policy we have about that kind of stuff is that we ask that families and visitors and parents, everybody, aren't up on the hall floors after 9:30 tonight until after midday, basically. So if you want to meet your student on the first floor, you're more than welcome to. There's lots of benches around everywhere. Or if you need to drop something off, if she's running around to these different chapter houses, you need to drop something off. We have a system in place we can get it to her. So don't stress about that.
So we just show up at the lobby of our dorm, or where do we?
Yeah, you can just show up in the lobby of residence hall. Whatever works best for you all.
All right.
Mhm.
And then we're from out of state, so will the houses online at all when we get?
We don't.
Oh, there it goes. We don't post the bid list online. It's hard for me with that one because a lot of newspapers will ask us for the bid list. And at the end of the day, I'm like, frankly, it's none of your business, which maybe that's a bad view to have, but it's your students' business. It's not the whole world's. And we only post it on that window for like a day, and we take it down. So we don't post it online, but you can always email us, and I can let you know where people are, yeah. Hopefully she'll keep you in the loop.
Okay, so we have one more question, and it'll be our last question because I know that we've got to, if you want to like walk back to Lloyd Noble or whatever, but we ask, and then I think Hunter and I will be here to answer some questions. And then Kyla will stay for a little bit before we head to Lloyd Noble. So last question of the evening.
Yes, it's a two-parter. First one is just a yes or no. Do each of the houses charge the same amount? I didn't even think about that until you started talking about fees and stuff like that. Is every house the same amount?
Every house is not the same amount.
Okay, that's all I need. Okay, and then the next one, on time requirements during the week, what should we anticipate as far as, because our daughter's thinking about a job, also thinking about a couple of different organizations. So how much time should we anticipate each week? Is it 5, 6, 7, 8 hours? Is it a part-time job?
Is it a part-time job? Sometimes it can feel like that. That's a great question, time commitment question. So most chapters, actually all of our chapters have 1 hour a week that's mandatory meeting. So time for them to come together, get to hang out, do some chapter business if needed. Everything else, I mean, it's one of those things, it's like what you get out of it, what you put into it, which is like the most cliche answer ever. So if your student's really into leadership and wants to have a leadership position, when I was chapter president, it felt like a full-time job. I was like, oh, I'm taking care of all these people. I am now their parent, is how I felt. But every student's experience is different. So if they're involved in like the homecoming committee, it might be really busy for those 3 weeks while they're prepping for homecoming, but then after that, the time commitment will go down.
I was in a fraternity.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, we need you to stick around. It's not required. We really like it. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of time as a pledge. So I'm just assuming, is it the same with girls too?
Oh, he said pledge. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just kidding.
I still say rush too.
That's okay. We'll figure
Taboo.
it out.
Yeah, you'll notice we've got a whole new vernacular, new member recruitment.
But so, I mean, is it, should we just anticipate 5 hours a week that's going to be required? They need to be there to do things?
Yeah, I would say like a good average is like 5 to 6.
Well, and I will tell you something. As a protection for your student, we have a co-curricular policy on this campus that you are not allowed to spend more than 15 hours on any given week with one single organization. So as a student, if your daughter, your child, if they are in like a sorority, and let's say they're in homecoming and university thing, and they've got to do all these dances, we as an office have been really good about making sure that that student is not doing more than 15 hours. Back in the day, probably whenever I was a student, you would do, university thing, we would do 20 hours a week for just like an 11-minute show, right? We have decreased those hours to like 6 to 8 hours a week now. And if you, whenever I was a student, you would have to do that and homecoming, right? Whereas now we have rules that if you're at UC, you're not allowed to do homecoming, right? And so we put things in place to protect your student. Now, it's up to your student to make sure that they know kind of their rights and say all right, this is kind of, I'm done. This is our time. But we work with our chapter presidents to make sure that they know hey, if these students are involved, this is what you need to make sure the priorities are.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. All right, hey, Kylie, we here. Round of applause for Kylie. She's awesome. Again, she really is the real deal. If you guys have questions, she will probably be the other person on the other line of the phone, or it'll be Hunter, who's our other Greek advisor, or Jill Tran, who is our former Panhellenic advisor who did this job for 10 years. So we've got a lot of expertise, and so just make sure you call us. If you're angry, it's okay. We can take it, okay? But thank you so much, and we'll see y'all at Lloyd Noble. But we'll be